So this is just a super fun, casual summary of what I've done this year in 2023. And it all started in Lisbon, Portugal, where I, on New Year's Day, flew to the city of Funchal, which is the capital of the island of Madeira. Now, you'll notice in this video, the crucial element here is I love to take time-lapse photography out the window of every takeoff and landing. So this is what you're going to be watching throughout this video, is all these beautiful landscapes that I have taken off from and flown into. And I will say that landing in Madeira was one of the most amazing experiences I had. Not only just this amazing island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but then the co-living experience that I had living and working alongside a bunch of other people who also have travel and remote work lifestyles. And that has actually ended up being a theme for the rest of my year of travel. So when I left Funchal, I then flew to Lisbon, where I just had a few hours and then ended up flying off to Miami. But just a quick note while you're watching this beautiful scenery about this co-living and co-working. If you have a digital nomad lifestyle and you are interested in establishing community with people along the way and sharing your life and lifestyle and having accountability with other people who are also working remotely, because it's a very different style of travel, as you'll know from some of my videos, then I do encourage you to look into things like co-living and co-working programs. And I have articles on my website about just that. From Miami, I went on a Caribbean cruise. This is the first Caribbean cruise I've ever been on. It was with a group of people who were entrepreneurs and also some salsa dancers. So I enjoyed a little bit of time in the Caribbean before flying up to New York City. Now, this was March of 2023, not normally a time that I would choose to spend in New York City because it's not quite warm enough for my tastes. However, in New York City was an amazing experience, and that experience was called Women's Travel Fest. And I was very lucky to be one of the keynote speakers at Women's Travel Fest. And I spoke about how I saved over $100,000 in my first 10 years of travel by getting my accommodation for free. So this is also an amazing conference, and I highly suggest you go. Now, instead of taking a flight from New York City, I took a train from New York to Toronto. If you know much about me, I absolutely love train travel, so that was a fun journey. Before hopping on an airplane, a little bit about a month later, to Cleveland, Ohio, where I spoke at another conference called CEX, Content Entrepreneur Expo. And again, I had the great fortune to be able to do a keynote presentation. This time it was about remote work hacks for content creators. And I love attending this conference every year. If you're a content creator, I cannot recommend it enough. So off I took from Cleveland back to Toronto. It's actually a very short flight, but surprisingly enough, there's very few direct routes that get you there. But I was lucky enough to be on one of those direct routes. By now, it's about springtime. It's May in Toronto, which was time actually for me to go to another conference. Springtime seems to be conference season. This was not a conference I was speaking at, however. This one was in Indianapolis, and it was a conference called VCon, and it is just related to an art project that Gary Vaynerchuk has, developing a new series of cartoon characters, basically. So that was a fun little conference to attend, where I got to hang out with some friends of mine and talk NFTs. I'm not a super NFT investor, but I do believe in investing in certain projects that I think have legs for the long term. So that was fun to go to VCon. And before I flew back to Toronto I have a home base in, so you see lots of flights to and from Toronto throughout this year. I will say, although while you're seeing our flights, I definitely did have time in between all of these flights. So another month or so passed before I flew to New York to speak at another conference. What did I tell you? It was conference season. Now, New York is not where the conference was this time, but it was where I flew into, because then I hopped in a car with some friends to attend another conference that I have now had the good fortune to attend and speak at a couple of times, called Camp Indie. And that was great fun. It really is summer camp for adults. And I got to share 12 lessons from 17 years of full-time travel. Off I went back to Toronto for a very, very quick turnaround before I flew to Europe. I ended up spending the entire summer in Europe. I actually went on a 3-month trip with carry-on luggage only. That's not actually the spectacular thing, but the spectacular thing is that entire carry-on trip, my travel wardrobe was made of 100% merino wool. And stay tuned early in January for a video about exactly that. So I flew to Europe, stopping first in Warsaw. Now, I'm very lucky in that I use frequent flyer miles in order to fly in business class for less than the price of economy. So this was one of my long-haul business class adventures, flying over to Warsaw, where I immediately caught another plane to Bucharest, Romania. This was my first time in Romania, so I had a few days there to check it out. And if you check out my video about the best travel apps, I will share a hack that in that video that I used about how to curate your travel list of things to do and recommendations from other people. And in Romania, I was able to take advantage of all these recommendations that friends had given me. One of which was this place, which is Term, which is Europe's largest spa, and it was really an amazing experience. Again, I hopped on a train instead of a plane this time to go from Romania to Sofia in Bulgaria. I love train travel, but this was probably one of the more difficult train trips I've ever done because it was ridiculously hot. However, Bulgaria is also one of my favorite places to spend the summer. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is a mountain town, but also a ski town. Come on, how can you not love that juxtaposition of technological wonders there? So I enjoyed about a month and change in Bulgaria, in Bansko. There was a conference there called Nomad Fest, so that was the reason that I went, but it will not be my last time. Speaking of recurring themes, I loved Madeira so much in January that I returned again for August. I wanted to see what Madeira was like in the summertime. Again, look at this landing. I mean, it is absolutely gorgeous. This is just a pearl of an island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It also has a really interesting digital nomad community. This was a sunrise hike that I did one day. There's so much amazing hiking, but there's also great culture, great food, great scenery, great architecture. I can't say enough wonderful things about the island of Madeira, and I had the good fortune to have a high school friend visit me, which made it all the more special because I could see the place through fresh eyes. So after a month in Funchal, I hopped on another plane, surprise, surprise, this time to Tallinn, Estonia. However, this was the longest set of flights that I had. I actually spent a night in Madrid first, and then I spent a night in Frankfurt before moving on to Estonia. So while you're watching these wonderful takeoffs and landings, I'll explain why I was in Estonia. It was for another co-living and co-working experience called Hacker Paradise. And if in January I loved the experience of co-living, in September I really leveled up that experience with my month with Hacker Paradise, which was just an incredible experience of really living and sharing skills and experiences and fun time as well as work time with a bunch of other people. So it was a very curated experience of being in Tallinn, Estonia. Estonia was absolutely beautiful. Also, they're super tech forward in terms of how they operate, and it's definitely a place I want to go back to and explore some more. They've got not only lots of interesting history and architecture, and Tallinn in particular is like a little medieval joy. It is absolutely gorgeous. Once again, in my business class adventures, Tallinn took me through Warsaw and ultimately back to Toronto, because this is now the end of 3 months in Europe. And now it's the end of September in this year of travel, and I was back to Toronto. Now, I actually had some different plans for the rest of the year, but I ended up having to make some adjustments because this has been a lot of travel throughout the year, and I found myself getting kind of tired. So I actually canceled some of the plans that I had for the rest of the year so I could spend a little bit more time in Toronto, chilling out, spending some time with family and friends, and getting some work done, because the previous 3 months in Europe was amazing from a social and a travel perspective, but it also meant that I struggled to stay on top of my work. So I needed a little bit more grounding. But as you can see, I had lots of adventures. I went to Niagara Falls because, why not? And I definitely enjoyed the fall colors in Toronto before hopping on my last plane of the year, or almost my last plane of the year, back down to Miami. I have a very dear friend who lives in Miami, and I went to visit her, and I'm about to hop on my next plane, and you're just gonna have to keep watching and keep following me in order to figure out and find out where that is. So thank you so much for this amazing year of travel. Thank you for following me. Thank you for subscribing. And here's to another amazing year of the travel lifestyle in 2024. Happy holidays.